Welcome back to our summary of Adam Smith's The Wealth of Nations. We're looking at Chapter 2 of Book 2, on money as a branch of the general stock. In the last chapter, Smith explained that capital can either be fixed or circulating. Circulating capital is those goods which must be exchanged in order to gain the benefit from them, and includes provisions, raw materials, finished goods, and money itself. Money, however, functions differently in an economy to the first three, and so Smith devotes this chapter to it. Provisions, raw material, and finished goods all eventually end up either being consumed or becoming fixed capital themselves. Money, however, acts instead like a wheel, helping to distribute revenue around society without actually contributing to that revenue. It also resembles fixed capital in that it costs to produce and maintain it. We've jumped ahead of ourselves here though, so let's go back to the beginning of the chapter. Smith starts by referring back to the idea in Book 1 that the price of a thing could be broken down into component parts of wages, profit, and rent. Likewise, the annual produce of a country can also be broken down into those parts, since it consists of all the products of the country combined. He then distinguishes between the net revenue and gross revenue of an estate or a country. In the book, he talks about land, but because it's more current, we will give an example for a building. Say a landlord owns an apartment building and rents it out to tenants. The gross revenue is the money the landlord gets from his tenants, but he has certain costs. He has to pay to maintain the building in a good state of repair, and it costs him money to collect the rent. What is left after these costs is the net revenue, and it is only from the net revenue that the landlord gets to enjoy the benefit. This applies at a national level as well. A country as a whole has a gross revenue and a net revenue, and it is only the net revenue that contributes to a nation's wealth. The net revenue is what remains after the cost of maintaining the nation's fixed capital. In this, circulating capital is different from fixed capital, as circulating capital exists either to be consumed eventually or to increase fixed capital, except for money. Smith now makes an important point about money. The wealth that money gives is not in the value of the coin itself, but rather in what can be bought with it. He gives the example of a man with a pension of 1 guinea a week, an old British coin worth £1 and 5 pence in modern terms. His actual revenue would be great or small in proportion to how much consumable goods he could purchase with that guinea. The revenue an individual has and the actual money they get is different, and this is even more so for a society as a whole. The revenue of a society is much greater than the amount of money in circulation, because each individual coin or note will change hands many times, and each time it will add to the individual's revenue and to society's revenue as a whole, since society's revenue consists of the sum total of the individual revenues within it. Smith now spends the rest of the chapter considering paper money, something he is strongly in favour of. Banks issuing paper money based on the bearer being able to exchange the note for gold from the bank's reserves greatly increased the money supply available for investments, since although a person could exchange the note for gold, in practice most people rarely would want to do so. And so a bank could print more money than it had the gold to back up. At the time he was writing, in the late 18th century, banks had been issuing banknotes for at least 100 years, but paper money issued by governments themselves was still fairly new in the Western world. Having banks issue paper money freed up gold to be used for more useful things, like foreign trade, but there was a danger banks would print too much paper money and damage the economy. The answer for Smith was for governments to carefully regulate the actions of banks, and for governments themselves to keep gold in reserve. Okay, that brings us to the end of this summary. Join us next time when we'll be looking at productive and unproductive labour. If you found this video helpful, please give me a like and a subscribe. It will help the channel and make my labour hopefully more productive. Thanks.